All right. Welcome, everybody. We have Nick Shaw with Renaissance Periodization here with us, and then the usual crew. We have Jim Silver.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on.
We're changing, though. I'm going to be Shadowhawk from now on.
Shadowhawk.
Yeah, there's some book that's been laying around in here since the day I've been a member. It's some Egyptian story about how the Shadowhawk saves Egypt.
But this is my beef. You can't go, hi-ho, Shadowhawk. Hi-ho, Silver.
All right, so Shadowhawk's out.
And we have a live studio audience as well.
Can't be Shadowhawk.
It's the first time we've ever done that.
Nick, do you have an alias? Is there something you would like us to call you? You want us to call you Shadowhawk? You can have that one.
I mean, I'm fine with that. That sounds fun.
Okay, that's not right. He gets to show up and be Shadowhawk? That's some BS.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You can't make up your own nickname, though, Jim. That's
Yeah,
how,
exactly.
you can't do that.
You don't have a nickname.
I had a nickname in high school.
What?
Just Fro.
Fro?
Did you have fluffy hair?
No, my head baseball coach couldn't say my name, so he's like, I can't say that. I'm just gonna call you Fro.
Can I call you that from now on?
I don't care.
Fro?
Mom still calls
That
me
doesn't
Fro.
sound right.
And Richie sometimes.
Richie. I hear Richie.
Mom and most
Fro.
of my family still calls me Richie.
What's up, Fro?
That's what it was.
What about Lyle? Can we call you Lyle?
I don't care. I really don't care.
You look kind of like a Lyle.
I'm not sure what that means.
I don't either. I don't know what a Lyle
Did you have a
is.
nickname?
I don't want to talk about it. We already know.
Smelly Ellie?
No.
Smelly
my
Ellie,
name
that was
only
Smelly
rhymes
Jelly Belly?
with things that are large. I don't want to say fat or that jiggle.
Oh, and that's not
Elephants, jelly, belly,
Belly, yeah.
smelly. Yeah.
It's fitting.
They did call me Thunder Thighs for a while.
Oh.
I don't think that's politically correct anymore,
No.
is it? Can't
Thunder
do that.
Thighs?
That's
Why?
not right.
You can't say that.
That's what they did the 25-year anniversary of Sandlot, and they
Yeah.
were like, "You think you could say you play ball like a girl nowadays?" And they were like, "Absolutely not.
No.
You
Really?
couldn't do that. No."
And you can't say
It's
Thunder
my
Thighs.
daughter's favorite line.
Yeah.
She
nails
loves
it,
She
too.
loves it. So, but yeah,
That's awesome.
there was some. There was another thing that they were like, "Yeah, we couldn't do that now. It's extremely sexist." I can't remember what it was.
There are a lot of movies like that you watch and you look back and you're like, yeah, that
we
would
couldn't get away with
fly
that
right now.
I saw some old
People
Clint
are
Eastwood
too.
movie where he actually slapped some lady.
Did
Like
you
in
ever
the
see?
movie,
Did
he's
you ever
like-
see
or
the
John Wayne did
Did you
the
ever
same
see the
thing.
Sean Connery video where he's talking to Barbara Walters about slapping a woman? It's
I feel like you showed us that
it
one.
blows your mind because she's like, you're on record as saying it's okay to hit a woman. He goes, I don't think it's good. I don't think it's that bad. And you're like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
And you need to watch the video.
not
It's,
good
it's
and
like
it's
in the
that bad.
90s. The dude would get crucified now.
Right.
He's like, she's like, well, what's a situation that would warrant it? And it's awful. You're just like, okay.
So tell us a little bit about your business, about RP. And how'd you name it?
How did we name it? It's hard to, I guess, forget. So Renaissance Periodization, named after, I guess, two parts. So Renaissance, like the rebirth, and periodization refers to like the logical sequencing of various things in exercise, whether it's diet or training. So really the idea was like the rebirth of science into diet and training. And then the other cool part, I think, is a little bit more cool. So there's a hedge fund up in New York called Renaissance Technologies, and instead of hiring like the traditional brokers or whatever, they have PhD mathematicians and things like that. So they kind of have formulas that help predict the market, and they basically always outperform everyone else. So that's kind of the two parts. So that's kind of the idea. You quantify stuff to get better outcomes.
Wow. And you're the CEO of RP, correct?
Yeah, I guess so you could call that. Yeah.
How did that start? How did you get to this place?
Man, that's what everyone always asks. It really was just me and my buddy, Dr. Mike Isertel. I actually went to school at ETSU, not too far from here, PhD in sport physiology. And, we just loved fitness, writing diet and training programs. And we started writing diet and training programs for like our friends and stuff like that. And really just kind of grew from there. And of course, the social media, one person leads to 2, leads to 10. And, here we are 5 years later.
So why did your friends come to you? What was your sports background?
Man, actually, we talked about this before when I was here. I actually come from a similar background to you. I was a runner in high school, and then I switched to like powerlifting. So when I was a runner in high school, I weighed, like 150 pounds.
Quite the transition.
Yeah. And I've weighed like as much as about 250, and now I'm like, 205. So I'm like back in the middle. So I
250?
Were your family and friends like,
250s.
what happened?
Yeah, it's one of those things, well, it's good because kind of before we officially started RP, we tried everything on ourselves. And like one of the things we want to do is like, yeah, let's, get as much muscle, get as jacked as we can. And probably one of the errors we made, and luckily this was on ourselves before we started working with other people, is, you just kind of, you're kind of young, you just like lifting, and we kind of, masked up a little bit too much and stuff like that.
So was the 250 a solid 250 or was it like a sloppy 250?
It wasn't. It wasn't.
Where's your ideal? Where's your ideal point? Like what?
Here 210. Yeah, 210 or so. It wasn't a great 250.
Not a flattering 250.
I was really strong though.
Okay.
But,
I could deadlift a house. So what was the craziest or most errored thing you guys tried on yourself while you were during these self?
I think that was it. It was probably just trying to gain too much weight in the hope that you could just gain a bunch more muscle. This was probably like 2009, 2010, something like that. So that's probably the number one error, I think.
How much were you eating?
I mean, that was basically our full-time job.
What was the percentage, like carbs, fat, protein at that point? Do you remember?
So we weighed 250, so we're probably in like the 250 to 300 gram protein range.
That's a lot of chewing or chugging.
Yeah, carbs probably 500 plus. Back then we were.
Did you do blood work at any point?
How's your heart, man?
It's great
You're not
now.
It's
great
fall out on us here,
and,
are you?
Somebody get the AED.
We gotta make sure.
Yeah, back then, ironically, so when I met my wife, this was in New York City. She lived in a 5th floor walk-up.
Oh, jeez.
And I mean, you can imagine me like 250, like walking up.
Rhino and Jumanji.
Multiple times a day.
Oh, there's your cardio for the week.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
So that was, luckily, so once my son was born, we moved into an apartment building with like an elevator and stuff.
Nice.
And it was like,
thank God.
That's awesome.
But what's cool is you know what you know from experience.
That's the cool part. Yeah.
totally. Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah.
And the good part is, if you start and you do it long enough, that we weren't making those mistakes on paying clients. So you kind of learn up front before. So people paying for it get the better stuff.
Actual. The amazing thing to me is your business. It's results based. Like, on a daily, weekly basis, you're posting these results that people have. So like, there's so many diets and fads out there that people are like, this is going to make you feel great. You're going to lose weight. But with your business, you literally show pictures of people who have transformed incredibly through this process.
Yeah, and with the rise of Instagram, it's just been like the best thing in the world for us. Created a separate account just to showcase like client results, and honestly, that's the best selling tool that we have. Sometimes people ask me, like to kind of sell RP, and I'm like, I don't have to sell RP. I'm like, just go look at this.
Yeah.
Do people ever struggle though? And that's the other thing. Like, I look at these pictures and I'm like, wow, it must be so easy. And then you look at it. Do people ever come to you and say, I'm struggling with implementation?
Yeah, totally. I think just the number one thing is you just kind of have to be self-motivated, right? Like, you can have the best diet in the world, but if you're not motivated to follow it and stick to it, like, is it really worth anything? Not really. So, a lot of times, people, it's great because people see all those transformations, like, hey, this is really motivating, I got to get started, but you got to be willing to put in the work. Just like anything training related too. You're not gonna put 50 pounds on your squat by sitting on your butt.
Right. Can you explain, like, so you have these templates that basically tell you when to have your fats, carbs, proteins, and can you explain a little bit about like the timing side of it and things like that as well? Yeah.
So, in a nutshell, so when we first started, we did all one-on-one like coaching online, and we realized, so we created our first ebook way back in 2014. And we realized like that was a way that we could scale things. And so we went from like, let's say I would have, 30, 50 one-on-one clients. Like that's a good number. Then, we released the first ebook in October of 2014 and it reached thousands of people in the span of a few weeks. And we were like,
woo!
Hey, that kind of gets the wheel spinning. And then me and my buddy, Dr. Mike, we set out, how do we kind of like take the one-on-one coaching model and how do we make that like in relatively easy presented way to people that they can sort of get that same information, but instead of having to pay, $500 or $600 for a one-on-one coach, you can get it for like $100. And so that was kind of the idea of it. And then in February of 2015, we released them. And honestly, we just thought like, hey, maybe if these reach like, 1,000 people or so, like that would be really cool. And they just, they did pretty well when they took off. And then it was actually about 3 months after they first took off when people started getting results from them. Like people actually knew, they could see that it actually works. It basically was just like, exponential growth on top of that. Because then, let's say you had 100 people using them and then those 100 people post results and now, 500 people see them and it just kind of keeps, building like
Snowball.
that. And yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
So you have and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm new. I'm studying it. I'm super excited about it. But it's base, maintenance, fat loss. How many different?
Yeah. So, and I guess I didn't answer your other question about like the timing either.
That's fine.
Get back to that.
Get back
So
to it.
it just kind of, so if you have someone that trains first thing in the morning versus you have someone that trains, let's say late at night, the way that they structure the timing of their meals is going to look a little bit different. And so it has 5 different timing options built in. And then it actually changes too based on like how hard you train or how long you train, I should say, because it's more of a volume thing versus intensity. So if you're doing just a 1-hour CrossFit class versus, Rich Froning training 4 hours a day, someone training 1 hour a day, their diet's not going to be the exact same as Rich's, as you can imagine. And hopefully that's not a shock to anybody.
Right.
So, and it kind of lays all that out, and you get to kind of like a do-it-yourself program where you look at that and you go, oh, okay, well, let's say I train at lunchtime. So you just follow that option and you say, oh, well, I'm working out an hour today, so I'll follow the, light day, because it's not light like in terms of intensity. It just means, you're working out for like an hour or less. And so you follow that. And yeah, so it has like a base diet that you use to maintain your body weight to start, and then it has different phases built in. So if you wanted to cut, someone comes in to say, well, I want to cut 10 or 15 pounds. So you just start with base, get adjusted to things. Most people, their weight loss is going to stall out at some point when they're dieting. So it has phases built in. So if that does happen, you just go to the next phase.
Yeah.
So it's similar to what a one-on-one coach would do for you, but it's already right there, and then you just follow the directions and you just kind of move through it and slide through it. And really it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Knock on wood.
Yeah,
so.
it's not bad. I've been doing it. What am I, about 3 months in, 2 months in?
Something like that. I think it
Something
started
like
in
that.
like February. I think I was
How'd you
up
guys
here.
get connected?
Greg,
Yeah,
trifecta.
trifecta.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I really just started out because obviously for years I've noted that my diet was terrible and I never really tracked or did any of that stuff. And as I've gotten older, I was like, maybe I'm not, I didn't want to say I'm not recovering quite well, but I wasn't recovering like I felt like I should or like I was when I was younger. So it has helped. Like the big thing is I don't think I was eating enough, and definitely not eating at the right times. And then I've noticed the biggest thing is eating right before bed. Doing that type of stuff, having some protein and carbs before bed has helped me a ton.
Actually,
So timing's a big deal.
Timing's
there.
huge.
yeah, I was just gonna, real quick. I actually remember like the first text Rich sent after I sent it to him. He's like, "Did I get to eat all this?" And I was like, "Yeah, man. Like,
Go for it."
you train that much." So that was really cool to see, and glad to hear things are going well. The timing part, it's interesting. So we have a chart that kind of goes over the nutritional priorities, right? So like what's a little bit more important than other things, whether when it comes to dieting to lose fat, gain muscle, improve your performance. And so the timing, it's really interesting because at this high level, for you guys, timing is a little bit more important. But in our chart, it's maybe only about 10% of your overall success. So if you're someone that's just starting out, you kind of want to start, with the basics. And I always like to give the good analogy, and it usually fits with people because they understand it. But if you're a CrossFit coach and you have someone brand new that comes in day one, are you teaching them snatch technique on day one?
No.
Probably not, right? Most people just teach them how to move and stuff like that. So it's kind of the same. So the number one most important thing is, energy balance, calorie balance, like, how many calories you're eating versus how many you're burning. So if you want to lose weight, you want to lose fat, you got to kind of lower that a little bit. And then vice versa, if you want to gain weight, we got to, add in calories. So that's kind of the most important part. And so a lot of people, they say, well, you're saying that's the only thing that matters. That's not the only thing that matters. In the chart kind of lays it out in a nice, easy to read format. So it's the energy balance number one. It's probably, 40-50% of your diet success. And then like your total macronutrient intake. So protein, carbs, fats, how many of those are you having per day? Somewhere around like 30% of your diet success. So those two are by far the most important, when it comes to losing weight, gaining weight, improving performance. And then above that, the third one is nutrient timing. So like for most people, it's not going to make or break their diet. But when you start getting up to higher levels of CrossFit games, competing at regional stuff like that, the competition is all very high level. So, how do you give yourself an edge? Something like nutrient timing can come in and, help with some of that.
It just blew my mind looking at the sheets at first, and it's like a round exercise, like adding like 80 carbs here, and I'm like, I'm like, good grief, I got to eat a loaf of bread, and it's like actually considering that. And honestly, how much less than you were suggested to eat from him were you eating on a daily basis? Were you eating like 10%? Like,
50 at least.
Like-
I was not eating nearly enough.
which that contributes massively to recovery and everything else. And it's just really interesting to see, laid out in front of you, well, maybe I'm not doing a great job here.
Right.
Oh, I actually can eat this much food. That's pretty cool to actually see
Yeah,
laid
just
out as
usually
well.
eating more around training is something that, because if you're training for 3 or 4 hours, it's kind of hard to eat around there. So I think a lot of times, higher level people, when they start eating more around training, it usually helps.
Yeah, feel better.
So how are you getting skinnier? Jake said you're skinnier.
I know, Jake said I'm looking skinny. Where's Jake? Jake's not even here. Yeah. But I weigh
way more,
probably
but
3 or 4 pounds more. I'm around my normal,
Right.
like 196 to 200. That's literally where I'm at all the time.
right.
But, yeah, I don't know. Jake says I look skinny.
Better
Thanks,
start
Jake.
eating.
Do you have an answer for that? Why is he skinnier?
I mean, he said he's put on a couple pounds, will look
Okay.
skinny. I mean, that's like best case scenario, right? So,
I feel better.
yeah, no, hey, perfect.
Do more people come to you to RP for performance or aesthetics, would you say?
That's really interesting. So when we first started, we were kind of more in like the performance aspect of things. Like we worked with a lot of athletes. And then, so like I kind of personally come from like bodybuilding, powerlifting background. That's how I first got started in lifting after all the endurance stuff, of course, in high school. And so we kind of started out in those circles like powerlifting. And then we started working with some weightlifters.
Was that your target market to start, like weightlifting, or
Honestly, back then our target market was anyone.
Money.
Right? Like,
anyone that
when,
moved and needed
right.
to eat?
Pay the bills.
When you're when you're first getting started, you just kind of, you'll help whoever. And so it just happened to be powerlifters, and then weightlifters took notice. And then, of course, as you guys know, CrossFit and weightlifting is pretty closely related. And so then we started getting into the CrossFit circles. And at the time, I think we came in at a good time, knock on wood and all that, in that it was just a lot of paleo. And so it was like paleo, or there wasn't really much else in there. And like the whole like macro counting and all that was relatively new. And we kind of came in and we're like, well, you don't necessarily have to eat just paleo. You totally can eat paleo. We're just going to kind of give you the amounts and the timings of things. So we have a lot of people that do like to eat paleo, and that's totally fine, right? Like the idea is you need some flexibility that, choosing foods that you like. Because if you tell people you can only eat, this, and this, but if someone doesn't like those or they're not used to eating them or something, it's just, you're not setting someone up to be successful. And so that's why you got to give a little bit of flexibility. And then, we got into CrossFit circles, and, as you guys kind of know, things had kind of snowballed from there. So that was, I just think, really cool.
Do you personally, because I know like in your template, you could literally take the fats, proteins, you have suggestions of what to eat. But do you personally feel like you like to eat cleaner, or you like organic, or you don't care about it? Like, does food quality have any bearing on you personally, or do you suggest that to people?
Yeah, so I guess I should finish. So the nutritional priorities. So energy balance, calorie balance is number 1. Macros is number 2. Nutrient timing. And then, so again, this is for like performance and losing weight and gaining weight. Food quality is like number 4, and then supplements are number 5. Now, people always like to say, well, does that mean like food quality doesn't matter? That does not mean it doesn't matter. It's just relatively speaking, like you have to get your calories in order first if you want to actually lose or gain weight. And so in terms of like just general health, those shift around just a little bit, and like food quality becomes more important for sure.
Right.
In my own personal house, I mean, my wife buys all sorts of organic stuff.
Yeah.
So
Look at her smiling.
Sounds like a lady that I'd like to hang out
it's
with.
just,
Organic's fake.
It is
It's not real.
Fake news.
Yeah,
It's fake news.
Silver got a top 5.
it's not real.
You're gone. See ya.
I'm just kidding.
I mean,
It's
like,
conspiracy.
It is not a
It's a government
I don't know. I
Pretty
grew
sure.
up in the country, just like small town Michigan. I mean, so I guess like, is that considered organic? Because we would just, I don't know, probably eat stuff from like down the road or whatever.
It's not,
so.
because you have to have these strict guidelines
There
that
are
nobody
guidelines.
follows.
No, it takes it's like 5 to 10 years to be able to grow organic crops, because if the land before
Land before
not
time.
The land before time.
if
Nice.
the pesticides are still in the soil, and the soil loses minerals and everything from all of the pesticides. I'm sorry, I'm not yelling at you.
Yes, you are. You're totally yelling at me.
Soapbox time.
Well, he
Soapbox.
eats organic, so it doesn't matter.
I did
It's
that on
fine.
purpose.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
That was
no,
the
that's okay.
reaction that we wanted to get
Well,
right
food,
there.
But here's the thing with nutrition and everything right now. Like, we all know that all these
Red
trends.
40.
Alzheimer's. That's what you say. Red 40. I say Alzheimer's.
Truly.
Truly.
Alzheimer's.
What was the safe word?
How do you say
Alzheimer's
it?
to what?
No, the safe word. What was it?
Nighthawk?
Nighthawk. Nighthawk.
No, we got to talk about Red 40 1 second. This is valuable information.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So, all of you, if you drink anything red and it has Red 40 in it, it is proven
You're gonna
to
die.
cause brain
All dead.
things
You're
like
dead.
Alzheimer's.
Brain
Alzheimer's.
things. That's a
So-
technical term.
Brain things.
Don't
Brain things.
drink Red
Hashtag.
40. It's outlawed in Europe,
Yeah.
Milosh, right? On Serbia, you probably can't have Red 40.
Yeah.
So there. Anyway,
But in America, you can.
I'm ordering some now. Somebody get on Amazon. Order me some Red 40.
I just want a vial of Red 40.
Yeah.
that I would cry. Tears would
I'm just gonna
literally come to
throw
my
it on
eyes.
I
you.
want to be sponsored by Red 40.
Yep.
That's the
Hashtag Red
worst thing
40.
I've ever heard.
I don't even know
You
what I'm
do
talking
not.
I
about.
don't even know what Red 40
I have
is.
no clue. No
Well,
idea.
just don't drink it, please, for me.
Okay.
Anyway.
Organic. We were talking about organic.
Well, so I was just
And
going
how
to
much of a sham it is.
Yeah, sham.
It's
A
not
Travis sham mockery.
We talked about the strawberries. So it's like if you slice a conventional strawberry and organic strawberry, the conventional's
Conventional.
all white in the
Conventional
middle.
strawberry.
Conventional strawberry.
Yeah. Don't eat conventional straw. I took a picture the last time I was at the
Conventional is
grocery
the
store.
correct term.
Yes.
Conventional.
You don't run in organic circles. You don't know the language. It's conventional versus organic.
Sorry, I don't know what an organic circle looks like, but I don't want to be a part of it.
No.
Yes, you do.
No.
Get out of the red 40 circle. Anyway, it's true. If you
Come over to the
slice,
light.
if you slice an organic strawberry, it's very red, and it has more
And
nutrients.
it has
in
more Red 40 in it.
Okay, so now let's ask the expert about organic. So talk to us about what's real. Set her straight.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a
And
really
don't screw this up.
it's
set me
it's a
straight.
really interesting question. So what's kind of the best way to go around this? So
Choose your words wisely.
yeah, no, for sure. And
got your back.
again, some of my colleagues would be able to go over the exact science and details a little bit more. It seems like there's like the huge body of evidence of research and literature on organic foods, and the kind of consensus right now. And again, like the reason that I'm kind of easing into this is because it's a very hot topic,
Touchy.
right? Like it's very,
Obviously.
very.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help you guys
You're
live
yelling
longer.
at us. Easy.
I can yell louder. That's not my yell voice.
Wow.
I actually don't yell at all, so
Wow.
it's fine.
But
Keep
so
going.
again, it's interesting because food in general, like diet, whatever kind of diet people adhere to, it's a very hot topic. It's almost like politics or religion. The people get really, really heated about it.
Yes. Yes.
We know.
We have evidence.
It's not heated. It's passionate.
Right? No, passionate. I mean, people are very, very passionate about it. Just say like low carb versus not eating low carb. I mean, people are super, super passionate about that. For whether that's good or bad. But anyways, it just seems like kind of the overall, body of evidence. And I think like some researchers at, Stanford did a huge, meta-analysis on all the literature, and kind of comparatively speaking, organic versus non-organic, the main thing that was different about it all tended to be price.
Right. Did you hear that, Ellie? Price.
Okay, so
Now that
And
so,
he even said you always say they research. They say. They say. He
Here's-
said
no, and
Stanford.
Specific research.
that's what whoever does the research study is being paid by whoever to give you whatever answer.
Whoever, whatever
Whoever they.
But you cannot argue. So we've geeked out lately. We've had doctors come on and show us like markers and talked about, if we do these blood tests,
We've
will
had
this
a
improve
doctor.
performance?
One doctor.
Anyway,
not plural.
so the markers look.
Him. It's just him. It's one single.
so interestingly enough, so
I have a really valuable point.
You're gonna
No,
go
no,
back
for
to the,
sure.
the cows eating the
I am not. I'm
non-GMO
talking
grain. That's
about
what
the markers from eating red meat. Grass-fed red meat has more.
Grass-fed and grass-finished, or just grass-fed,
You
grain-finished?
thought this was going to be good for your business when you came on, didn't you?
well, no. So
Psych. No,
You
I'm
don't need more omegas. Fine, you eat your conventional turds.
So
I don't
that
care.
one's really interesting because there does seem to be some
with
some-
meat, yes.
Yeah, like grass-fed tends to be better than the other stuff for sure.
I like grass-fed
I
beef,
think the important
but it's
thing,
gonna be grass-finished.
That's true. It's a good point. You should talk about that.
and I think the part why people get really heated about some of this, and again, like so why we have it at the Shaw household is I think. So if you're a mom, right, and you can buy organic versus non-organic, the organic marketing has kind of been labeled. Like if you're not eating organic, then like you're almost
kill your kids.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, kind of. And so I just think like that's again why there's so much passion and stuff behind it, because it's really easy. And again, I kind of tell my wife this. I'm like, why do you buy organic? She's like, oh, well, we just have to. And I go, it's almost because, especially at different, demographics, people too. It's like you almost have to buy organic because you have to feel like you're doing the right thing. Now that's not to say that it does not have value, because it certainly does. And I think the big thing is just kind of going back to consistency and people getting to kind of choose some of the foods that they like and enjoy. So sometimes a lot of people, again, because it's priced higher, they just can't afford organic sometimes, and so that's kind of a limiting factor. I mean, if you can afford it and you do buy it, like, is that cool? It's absolutely cool, right? And no one's hopefully saying otherwise, but I think it's just kind of giving people some options.
So what I hear you saying is your food quality is important.
It is,
and we need to aim as high as we can aim, and legitimately do the best we can.
Yeah. So when it comes to like general health, the reason that food quality is more important, because how do people really gain weight? So you eat like junk food. I mean, you eat processed food and all that. And what is all that stuff? So a lot of it's processed, right? So it's not organic, but it's also super high in calories for the most part, because, take a look at like a Snickers bar. It's this big and it has, 400 calories. Whereas if you eat a plate of, let's say, chicken, rice, and broccoli, you're eating like this much food for 400 calories.
Yeah.
And so food quality slides up in terms of importance when you're just eating for general health, just for weight loss. So performance, retaining muscle and all that stuff goes out the window, becomes a lot more important. Because if you ever met someone that's going to gain a bunch of weight from eating mostly healthy foods, it's very hard to do.
Yeah.
I don't want to say impossible, because
It's possible, but
right, it is possible.
Yeah.
You could probably take olive oil and just like, something like that. So I just, again, it's hopefully the idea is, give people options and, kind of look at everything out there and, make the right choices for them.
I'm not like, I get heated and I joke with you guys, but
we're kidding as well.
I know. But it goes back, and I feel like it comes down to, just general ignorance. Like, most people don't know what's in foods, and back in the Industrial Revolution, they started making foods easily and inexpensively.
They did.
To survive. I'm going to start bringing my research studies for you. It's fine. And so now all of these things started being added to foods that weren't necessarily, or they didn't know back then, bad for food or lower testosterone production or whatever. So I'm not saying like people who don't eat organic are bad. I just think we don't actually realize what we're consuming sometimes when we're eating foods or processed foods, because a lot of things over time have been added to foods that aren't necessarily good for us, or could have negative effects on those performance markers that could have metals in them, that can have toxins in them. That
I think that part's really interesting, because I think some of that's more new. And so, over the coming, like, say, 5 or 10 years, there could be a lot of interesting research that starts to, show more of that. But yeah, just, I guess in a nutshell, the best way to, be healthy is eat less processed food. I don't think really many people can argue with that.
Can't argue that. No.
But you guys have great suggestions, like on your templates.
Yeah, like
what are like
really,
your carb suggestions? Like, list some of those for us.
Sweet potatoes, oats, fruits. Again, there's no like junk foods really written in the templates. The only thing that you could maybe say is like workout carbs, because you want like higher GI carbs. And again, especially for longer, harder training, it's more important. But if you didn't want to go that route and have like a sports drink or something, you could have something as easy as like coconut water.
Yeah.
So again, the idea is to give people options.
Right.
So someone like Rich, like he may want Gatorade and it's totally fine, whereas other people may want coconut water. It's like can you do both? Sure.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that are changing for you as you're doing this now and you're using the template? How is your diet changing, and what are you eating different?
Yeah, I mean, so I eat basically double what I was for breakfast.
What's your breakfast look like now?
Right
What are you
now,
eating?
usually four eggs, and then some oatmeal. So usually I'm around. What my numbers are like 40,
So probably something like that.
40,
yeah.
60 or something like that, or no, I'm 40 carbs in the morning, 20. I don't remember exactly. Like I have the meals that I've just my average is like
Right.
4 eggs, bowl of oatmeal, some fruit, and then a scoop of peanut butter in there. And then I'm now eating lunch, which I didn't eat lunch before.
Right.
And then post workout, usually so we do the intra workout carbs. So I use the Advocare Rehydrate for my carbs, and then some other. I'm trying to think, and then at dinner, is usually, some type of meat, rice, vegetable, and then at night, usually a protein shake and some type of oatmeal.
Have you told him about that bag of chocolate chips that's hiding in the back?
I do have a bag of chocolate chips. That's why I fix my little sweet tooth
Like-
every once in a while after dinner.
Like in the casing or something?
I didn't mean to out you like that, bro.
Just like if I
mean-
want something sweet after dinner, I just take like 3 or 4 chocolate chips. Thanks.
I
Jim.
mean, fro.
yeah.
Pro.
So
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, if you train 3-4 hours a day and you're already like super advanced, like that's not the end of the world.
No,
So,
absolutely not.
No.
I mean, the amount of calories that are being burned are.
Well, and in competition and stuff, I mean, we carry around bags of gummy bears. Like sometimes there's a Pop-Tart necessity for sugar and
Hewitt
carbohydrates.
loves gummy bears or
Yeah.
those Walmart fruit smiles.
Oh yeah, fruit smiles.
It's actually, I mean, so on competition day, that's actually a really good idea because you want higher GI stuff. So
And I mean, you got to get it in, and you're not going to sit there and steam up. I mean, maybe there are people out there steaming bags of rice, but I
there
mean,
definitely are.
you know, grabbing a half a Pop-Tart and getting back out there.
Yeah, and the idea around competition too, like what you eat on a day of competition is you want stuff that can get into your system fast. Like you wouldn't want stuff that's really high in fiber or like a ton of veggies or something because usually that stuff's going to set a little bit heavier, and so you're already kind of anxious or whatever from working out really hard. So eating things higher in fiber or fat can cause a little GI distress. So higher GI carbs like that is not a bad idea, and some of it depends on like. If you have several hours, like if the CrossFit Games, you're doing one event in the morning and maybe you're not going again until later at night, like maybe it's not quite as important, but if you're going again, let's say an hour or something like that, it's probably a little bit more important to have something like that.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's easier to get that stuff in than it is, sitting down and eating a plate of rice
Oh
and
my
stuff
gosh.
midday or something. Yeah.
I'll never forget. I was doing a half Ironman years ago, and I just learned about the zone diet. And I was like, oh, okay, so I have to eat this perfect balance. I'm in a 5-hour race, and I have a chopped up zone bar, and I'm like on the bike, and I'm like trying to chew. And finally, I was like, I can't do this right now.
Yes.
It was so bad. And so there's like a time and a place for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, so like if you watch a lot of that stuff, usually they have like gels or liquids or something because however you can get it
it's
in.
No chewing at that point. If you could give an athlete that is maybe just learning about nutrition 3 suggestions, just initial suggestions to improve their nutrition, what would you suggest?
Yeah, so sometimes, if people are trying to lose weight or something, the mistake that a lot of them will make is, let's say, if a competition coming up in 3 months. Well, is it better to start cutting now and then maintain into the competition? Or a lot of people, they realize a month out from competition, they go, oh crap, I got to cut. And then they start doing like drastic measures because they're trying to hit specific weights or something. So that's probably one mistake. Number 2 is usually, maybe it ties in with number 1, but if they don't kind of give themselves enough time to do stuff, then they start having to take drastic measures. And if you're a performance athlete and if you start cutting carbs, that's probably not going to be great for performance. So, don't necessarily cut carbs when you're cutting. Give yourself enough time. Those are 2. And I think number 3 is just kind of having a general sense or knowledge or understanding of what you're eating and how much. If you're doing that, that's probably going to help the other 2 as well.
How do you guys teach people in terms of like, so if, a newbie to nutrition gets handed a template that says, hey, you need 25 carbs or this, and this, how do you handle just informing people so they know what to put on their plate?
Really good question. So what you're talking about for the most part, I guess you could call them our more advanced templates, the main RP diet templates. We actually have beginner, just healthy diet
okay.
templates. And it's just like they don't have different options for timing or like how hard you're training. It's just more or less, do you want kind of a healthy balanced diet or do you prefer like lower carb? Because when it comes to just weight loss, so you just want to lose weight, you don't care about performance or maintaining muscle mass or anything like that. You just want to lose weight. So if you kind of equate for protein in total energy intake, there's not a huge difference if you want to go lower carb or if you want to go more balanced and have, a good amount of carbs and fats. So that's good news for a lot of people because it gives them options. So when it comes to just dieting for weight loss, again, not performance or anything like that. So it gives them options. That's always good. And then really just kind of giving some serving size picture examples.
Oh, that's cool.
And you
Pictures
just
are awesome.
put it next to like an iPhone.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
hey, this 4 ounces of meat is like the size of an iPhone. And,
That's great.
Yeah. So usually that just helps people relate to it.
So what template are you on?
My own, I assume, right?
So again, so the RP diet templates can cover kind of like light, moderate, hard, and then hard is probably up to like 2 or 3 hours of training. But once you start doing multiple sessions a day, stuff like that, it just gets a little bit more advanced that the the need for a custom plan comes into play for higher level stuff.
So how do you create a custom plan for someone in terms of I know that you talk about loss and maintenance and things like that. So you look at an athlete like Rich and you're coming up with a custom plan. How do you even set a goal, because you're not trying to lose weight?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, it's really just all about maintaining body weight and just, hopefully fine tuning some things, making sure he's eating more, eating the right things around training. Just relatively, simple things like that to help recovery performance.
How much are you guys communicating? What kind of?
In the beginning, a lot more.
Oh, it's interesting. So he's obviously had a lot of stuff going on recently. So, I think his quote was just trying to keep his head above water.
Yeah.
With everything going on.
Most
And
days.
interesting because, it was during the Open a little bit before when he started. So the Open's obviously a really busy time, and then you factor in, family stuff. So it's tough.
Yeah.
For sure.
Usually on average, with clients, usually a couple times a week. Usually get a couple updates.
So if somebody wants to connect with you, how does that work? What's the process look like?
You mean just like an RP coach in
Yeah,
general?
if somebody wants to use you guys. How does it work?
Just go to the website.
Yeah. So it's online initially.
Yeah, everything we
And
do is
then-
online, actually.
yeah.
Yeah. So we don't have a physical location. We don't have an office. I guess RP headquarters is my house.
Your house, right on.
Your house. That's
Where everything's
awesome.
organic.
Yeah.
Ellie.
All organic.
Sounds like a good place. So being a business owner, what's the biggest lesson you've learned so far? How long has RP been going?
Like 5.5 years, something like
Wow,
that.
that's
Yeah, and
awesome.
again, it started as me and my buddy writing diet and training programs for close friends and family in 2012.
That's cool.
And it didn't really kind of start to take off until 2014 when we started doing the ebooks and products, and then just kind of snowballed, like Rich said. I'm sorry. Yeah, I got myself sidetracked. Yeah, so biggest business mistake would be, thinking you have to do everything yourself.
Yeah.
So I think that's really easy to do when you're first starting a business. You kind of you want things done a certain way, and you think it can only be done that way. And I think we were talking about this when I was up here before, but I swear, 2015 and 2016, I probably never stopped working.
Jeez.
And it's if you keep going too long, you could burn yourself out. And now we have help, customer service help and all that stuff. So it's just a lot easier. I can just focus on other aspects instead of having to do the daily stuff that other people can help with. That's probably the number one biggest thing for sure.
So what's your advice for budding entrepreneurs?
Don't be afraid to let seek help, use help. Don't think that you have to do everything yourself.
I thought you were going to say get donuts. I was like, yeah.
Donuts.
Get donuts.
I'm on board with that.
Maybe a good way to help morality. And
Do you get a cheat
morale in
day?
the
Is there
office.
such thing as a cheat day in this deal, or is that
Not really.
a cheat
It's just
meal?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So anytime I've ever done a seminar, there's usually two questions that are always asked, without a doubt, every single seminar. And I think they go together. One is alcohol,
Right.
and two is cheat meals. And I think they go together. So I think a lot of it depends on the individual, depends on their goals, depends on things like their metabolism. So some people are more blessed than others in
Right.
terms of genetics, metabolism, and they can, let's say they're trying to lose weight, they can lose 1 to 2 pounds a week, and they can have a cheat meal every week. Whereas all of us probably know somebody that if they have a cheat meal, they gain 3 or 4 pounds, and then they're fighting to get that weight off the entire next week. So I think a lot of it just kind of depends on the person. So
Right.
if you can, if you want to have a cheat meal every week and you're okay with losing weight a little bit slower along the way, let that person make the choice.
I know for sure in my life where I'm at now, alcohol directly affects my performance, in a hurry. And I don't even have to have a lot.
Yeah.
If I have a couple of cocktails on a weekend or whatever and do something like that, I don't feel good till Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday. I don't mean sick, but I mean where I feel like I can perform at,
Yeah.
at what I think is.
Did you ever have the whoop on while you had a couple drinks?
Yeah. What are you saying?
I was going to share stories. I don't know. But anyway, there's a definite correlation in HRV. After a couple glasses of wine, you literally wake up in the red, undoubtedly, without question. That is the one thing I learned from this thing.
So you wake up in the red 6 days a week.
I
4?
No, never. I never drink wine, ever.
To go with the cheat day thing, though, but what I like is, you have a certain amount of carbs, and so you can kind of, it's probably not optimal to every once in a while throw in something that's a little bit more junk food, but as long as you're within your carb range, you can kind of get that cheat or make you,
Right.
get that out of your system, but still stay within the guidelines. That's something that I've noticed. I don't, there may be a day where I've got a lot going on, and so I'm not as strict on the diet, but I don't have like a full-blown, like, I'm a cheat day.
Right.
The beauty of it too is, he's just trying to maintain weight. So
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
when you're just trying to maintain versus when you're cutting, you have a bit more flexibility in the approach that you take.
Have you ever been chubby?
I had like a chubby stage when I was in middle school,
When you were born?
like in between like a growth spurt. And I
Right.
got super sick in high school. Like I got a stomach bug and strep throat all back to back.
Ooh.
I lost like 20 pounds, and then it was about the same.
Jeez. So what are you excited about right now? Is there anything new coming out in RP, or just keeping the ball rolling?
Yeah, good question. RP Diet Book 2.0 is probably going to come out later this
Ooh.
summer. Yeah. So the one that I was talking about before came out in October of 2014. So it's about 3.5 years old. So just kind of updating stuff, and it's probably going to be like 2 or 3 times as long, just
That's
to
awesome.
kind of update everything and just cover more topics.
How many cookbooks do you guys have right now? What
4.
kind of cookbooks do you
4.
have? Do tell.
My wife has made all of those.
Oh, fun.
So, I get to taste test all
Test
that
it?
stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Is there anything you've
it's
been
a
like,
rough
no
life.
way, absolutely not?
I'm actually kind of a picky eater, so yeah.
A little diva?
Little organic
Yeah,
diva.
yeah.
This isn't organic.
What are some of like big time misconceptions? People think about food and diet, and
The kind of low carb stuff,
yeah,
for sure.
there's a lot of stuff going on out there.
Carnivore diet.
Oh,
I didn't even
gosh.
think about that. Have you read on that or heard of that?
All meat.
It's crazy. Crazy.
It's an interesting approach.
Yeah.
So what is it again? They just eat literally everything is meat?
Only
All
red meat, right? This
All
dude
meat.
eats pretty much all he eats is ribeyes.
Rib eyes?
That's what he says.
There was a
Ugh.
podcast this guy came
Joe
on. and
Rogan.
Yeah. And he was supposedly a doctor, and he had broke some rowing record for
Masters,
like a master's
level. It was
but
like
he wasn't
rode a-
doing any blood work.
No,
so he
no
had
blood
no
work. So you have
science.
no like markers, but he did break the master's level. He's also like
Yeah.
6'4" and 240. So on a rower,
Right.
that's
That's solid.
and you're rowing for 1:14 at his, super impressive. I can't do it.
Yeah. No.
But he was talking about the carnivore diet, and
have you heard of this?
Yeah, familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah. You said that really nice. Like, yeah, I'm familiar with
Yeah.
it. That's
Did
very
you try it?
politically
Was
correct.
that one of your tests?
No.
You should do that.
Some people. So again, if you have sort of genetic disposition to things like higher cholesterol or something, it may not be the best approach to take.
Yeah, for sure. But there's so many things out right now too, and that's why it's interesting, like, seeing the templates and doing these things, because it is going so much towards science in terms of having blood tests. And now there's all these people talking about the relationship between the gut and the brain and certain biomes and fecal transplants and all those things
gross.
that I
We're
told-
not going back there again.
No,
yeah.
literally.
Wow. Back there? No
Hey,
pun
do you
intended.
do you have vegan templates for people like Kristen?
We do, yeah. Actually, we do.
Just kidding.
She's a
Seriously, we do.
vegetarian.
She's not a vegetarian. She eats
Are
fish.
you a vegan?
What are you?
What are you?
Pescatarian.
She's a
Pescatarian?
vegetarian.
Episcopalian?
Did you get a carnitine supplement? That's the only thing that I heard in recent from a doctor who is a vegan. His only takeaway was because he works with like high performing athletes, and the one marker he said that he saw in vegetarians was that they were missing carnitine, which is an essential amino acid, and it's very important for performance.
You're gonna die.
You're gonna. She's super fit. She's outside the norm on that. But he was saying, as a vegetarian, he would counsel high-level athletes to eat red meat or supplement with carnitine, because that would be the one thing that's missing. I don't know. He could be wrong. That's one guy's opinion. Just sharing
It was only him, not they.
Yes.
Now, if there was two people that said it, they would be in the
I
right.
don't remember his name. I don't know. There's so many things out there. And then there's the guy that says, who wrote The Plant Paradox. Have you heard about this? About how
Can't
that's
eat
the guy
seeds. You can't eat seeds.
He's the guy, that supports the fecal transplants, because he calls us a bacteria condominium. And if you eat seeds, it ends up, the lectins in them break down all of these things in your stomach, and it's supposed to be really bad for you. And
I like peanut butter.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
I don't know about that.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I just think a lot of the, blood markers, all that stuff is a little bit more new
For sure.
on the landscape. So, again, I think it could yield some interesting stuff in the next several years, 5-10 years.
But then you have your program where you have every before and after picture and it works. So,
Yeah, well, it's
people do it different
interesting
ways.
because there are so many different approaches out there. You start to look at, well, how can people all lose weight or something? Like, what's the common theme, right? So one group may completely eliminate fats. The other may completely eliminate carbs. The other may not eat meat. You start to look at all that and you go, well, what is the one thing they all have in common? Well, they're all going to have to control for calories somehow. So, again, whatever the approach is to lose weight, they're somehow controlling for calories. Now, they may be doing that directly or indirectly. So a lot of times, a lot of popular diets, they'll just say, don't eat this, don't eat this.
Yeah.
So what happens when you don't eat, a specific macronutrient? Most times, if you cut something out like that, you're going to, indirectly lower your calories. So people think it's kind of that magic of reducing that specific thing, but at the same time, it's also reducing calories along the way.
So was there anything that he's doing that you would say is outside the norm, or is it really just about finding the right balance?
What do you mean, like outside the
Just
norm?
diet-wise, anything that he needs that's different? Anything that he's doing that's different?
Well, so I mean, he's just burning so many calories because he's
Right.
training, so long that the amount of carbs he's eating is probably an outlier
Right.
for most
Sure.
people. So that's probably the one thing that would stand out.
Cool.
Outstanding.
You got one more question.
Uh-oh.
Oh boy, right?
Hey, who won the Florida-Michigan game this year?
I don't know.
Who?
Probably Florida.
I don't think that's
I think
really what
who was it, Nick?
What? I told her last time. So Michigan won.
Why? I should be sitting on my Florida chair and you should be sitting on the Michigan chair.
Ironically, that's the only team Michigan seems to be able to beat. So
Who has more national championships?
Like claimed by themselves or actually? Because that's the weird thing you're going around in college football. And I was like, we won that one back in 1912 because we.
Oh, that's such a.
So
1894.
I don't know.
Within the
I
last.
actually don't know the answer to that. Michigan claims 11, but 10 of those are before.
I was really talking about all
1948,
sports.
so-
I was talking about what's that trophy called? The Sears Trophy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was really referring to that one.
Is it?
Just because
that
I
might
don't
be
know if
close.
we
Let's
have
talk
more
about
than 11.
It's like, let's talk about the sports we care about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, let's see. What gets you up in the morning? And with a hard one.
I actually have a perfect answer for that. I have a 6-year-old son that goes to kindergarten, so that's what wakes me up in the morning.
Yeah, that's about right. I got
Sure
to.
enough.
And or my 4-year-old daughter who has just recently, well, not super recently, but so she now has like, she's not in a crib. She can get out anytime she wants. So, randomly throughout the night, like one of our kids will be standing in our room just looking at you.
It's the worst.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. About 6:30 every morning, Trice, now that he can crawl, wants to get up so he can get moving. So he's just like, hey,
Get moving.
hey, just like yelling
Somebody.
until somebody comes and gets him.
Yeah. I've definitely had that conversation with a kid who you wake up and they're right there. You're like, you can't do that again. Like,
It's just like 3 a.m. one
Yeah,
day, and my
like-
daughter.
I almost hit you. You cannot do that.
It's just weird. You're sleeping, but you just sense something nearby.
Yeah.
Something's not right.
Something's not going
Look
right.
up.
I'm out.
What do you want?
Yeah.
I got to go to the bathroom. Go to the bathroom.
Yeah,
What are you doing? I love you.
Kids
But-
are universal, man. It's
Yeah.
same stuff. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, Lakeland does this where she'll just wake up and just start talking, but yelling. And we're like, hey, stop. You're going to wake up your brother and your sister. Stop. And she's just yelling about whatever. And she's like, Gipper, like last night, she's like, Gipper, no. Gipper, no. Like yelling at our dog who was not even close to her and she's on the bed. It was just,
Doing
you
his
go.
own
she
thing.
hears it too much. He's haunting her like he haunts me.
Oh, jeez.
Cool. All right.
Well, thank you.
CrossFitMayhem.com, FroningandFriends.com, and
RenaissancePeriodization.com or RP Strength on Instagram.
Instagram. Cool.
Outstanding.
That's it.
Thank you,
Peace.
sir.
Thanks, Nick.